Okay, the next speaker, Jason Roberts hasn't made it yet, so we're going to have Thomas Sewid come up and talk for a half hour, and then take a half-hour break, and then we're going to go to the movie with Meet the Crew with Toby Johnson and his crew. Let's give a big welcome to Thomas Sewid from Vancouver Island, Sasquatch
Island. Greetings, my name's Tom Sewid, Sasquatch Island. I'd like to take this time to thank the Ho tribe and the other North American Indian tribes of the peninsula for allowing me and my wife and my team to be here. And as Craig said, I'm just filling in. So I've put a quick PowerPoint together, so we'll go with the next slide here. We call, from my tribe, the Kwakwakiwak, from northeastern Vancouver Island, we call it Tonapa, the wild woman of the woods. Lost in translation, for when the first explorers came, Tonapa was supposed to mean like Shrek, the ogres of the forest, the other tribe. So it sort of sticks as Tonapa being wild woman of the woods. But we do have a male mask that you will see in our different potlatches. And this Tonapa here is what you would see in a potlatch when a family is bringing to you in song and dance something that an ancestor witnessed out in the forest, out on a river, or down on the beach. And it could be a multitude of different performances, meaning that could be a sack she has or a basket on her back. When you go to my booth, you'll see the painting of the Tonapa with a basket, and she's reaching out to grab a child. Tonapa is said to catch misbehaving children, grab them with her big hairy arm and hand and shove them in a basket or a sack and carry them into the forest where she boils them up and eats them. Tonapa is our boogeyman, and I was brought up with that. But of all the tribes on British Columbia, the Kwakwakiwak have a very close tie to the Tonapa, and the reason being it's our highest ranked crest. Crests are like Rolex watches, Mercedes-Benz, F-350s. You're showing how wealthy your chief and family is by the crests you display in the potlatch, in your art, in your welcoming poles, house posts inside your big houses where all the vertical and horizontal posts are all carved. But most of all, it's the potlatch. When you open your gildas, your symbolic box of treasure, and the chief shares with everyone the crests that their family holds title to. And you will always see the Tonapa being performed. But this one I call Kodak, because over 120 years ago, we didn't have Kodak cameras. And one of my ancestors from the village of Mimkamlis, the village with the rocks and the islands out front, otherwise known as Mama Lalapula, village of Alaska Potlatch, one of her ancestors of the Mamliaka tribe of Kwakwakiwak went out and he saw a Sasquatch. He came back, he took a chunk of wood and carving tools, and this is what he made. And one of the things you're going to notice on this is the puckered up lips, and just imagine what the lips would look like if they weren't puckered. And you will notice the pronounced philtrum, that cleft here between our upper lip and the bottom of our nose. As soon as you see a picture of a Sasquatch, blob squatch, blurry squatch, whatever, like these ones, you look at that pronounced philtrum. If it's 3 fingers deep, that's a Sasquatch. You look at a Todd Standing Muppet, that is not a Sasquatch. Right away, no pronounced philtrum. And that's the first thing I always look at. And yeah, I diss Todd because he deserves it. But anyway, the Sasquatches that I've seen all had that pronounced philtrum. Some of them had very dark faces, like a chimpanzee with black and brown blotches. But I've heard stories of really black ones, but those elders that told me, they said, but they're not totally black. They're just like humans that have birthmarks. And it's one of the stories I've been trying to follow up with the different native elders I speak with and people that spend time in the bush, is what does it look like when you see them? So this is one of the masks that came from one of the collectors many years ago, and you can see that puckered lip, pronounced philtrum area, and it's pretty indicative of all of the West Coast native tribes when they do their carvings and designs from the old times of the Chonahua, or what they call their Sasquatch, they'll always emphasize that big philtrum area. So this is just to give you an idea what it looks like to be inside of a big house, what we call Kilksey. And these people here are from the Chandler tribes on the west coast, and I've been to their celebrations. And I can tell you one thing, when you're in a building like this or bigger, and you see that central fire, and you hear the drums being pounded, be it leather or else a hollow cedar log with wooden batons, the floor and the walls shake and rumble like thunder. A deep baritone voice, the singers, male, will be singing. And out on that dance floor, you will see what an ancestor witnessed, be it a natural animal or a supernatural animal. This one here is part of the Hamatsa society, which I belong to, and that's huku, long like a crane. But it's one of the most beautiful things to behold, is being in a ceremonial big house and witnessing our celebrations, our stories come to life in dance and song. And hopefully all of you will get a chance to witness a tribe bring forth their stories about their Sasquatch in a potlatch or another ceremony. This one here comes from the Kwakwaka'wakw. It's a pretty famous regalia that's seen throughout the internet. And this afternoon, my wife and I will be performing at 2 o'clock, and we're going to share with you our regalia from our family, and we'll be bringing it out. We'll get this table out of here, and be sure you're going to want to watch that one. So the potlatches of old, you could just imagine when you were in there and you saw a chief bring out his dancer in regalia to perform the Chonahua. And during the potlatches, they would bring out feast dishes. One of them I hear is in Portland in the museum, and it's like 16 feet long. Huge Chonahuas carved lying on their backs, and sometimes the ladles were even carved with Chonahua. Some of the different ceremonies in the old potlatches had daggers that had Chonahua carved on it. And everything was to emphasize just how valuable it was for a family to hold title to that Chonahua crest. So Sasquatch Island, what is it? Well, we're standing on it. North America. The native peoples from across North America, before contact and afterwards, referred to North America as Turtle Island because it looks like a turtle from space. This is not a UFO conference, so I'm not going to get into why and how they got up there. But they called it Turtle Island. I call it Sasquatch Island because every native tribe and everyone that lives in different regions of North America have stories about the Sasquatch, the Rougarou, the Skunk Ape, the Mountain Devil, the Jersey Devil, the Brass Man. And now we're seeing more and more that our community is getting bigger and bigger, and more people are interested in Chonahuas, Sasquatches. Now, years ago, when I was a young man, I was a bad man. I was going fishing all over, from down in San Diego up to Alaska, all through British Columbia. My family and chief said I needed to get on track with my life. I needed a wife, a white picket fence, a mortgage. And I said, no bloody way, I'm gonna go fishing, make a lot of money, and go to nightclubs. Well, my chief said, you're gonna go to our abandoned native village, and you're gonna be our native watchman. You're gonna make trails in the overgrown village. You're gonna remove the boards with rusty nails and broken glass, the metal. You're gonna build outhouses and picnic tables for the sea kayakers and tourists that come in their sailboats and their yachts. And you're gonna tell them what our village means, with the old totem poles on the ground and the big house remains. But fortunately, when I grew up, I was Tommy 10,000 questions. I asked the elders about being Kwakwaka'wakw. I asked my mother's side elders of the Cree what it means to be a Cree. And when I was a commercial fisherman traveling around British Columbia, Tommy 10,000 questions. We'd be sitting in a bar, we'd be sitting on the dock and net loft, or on the deck of boats anchored out and tied together, and I'd say, what do you know about Sasquatch? And they would tell me. And fortunately, I was able to retain all those memories to this day, and more that I gather each day and month. But I have stories from throughout British Columbia about other people's encounters with Sasquatches. And I've also been traveling around North America, Northwest Territories, Omaha Indian Reserve, where they say it's on like Donkey Kong with Sitonga. their Sasquatch. And I've been to other places where everyone seems to be seeing something, an increase in population of Sasquatches. And the reason for that, we indigenous people of North America, Central America, and South America, after contact, were subjected to smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis, venereal disease, alcohol, and bullets. And over 126 million of us, they estimate, disappeared from the Americas. And in 1920 in British Columbia, when they did the census of the Kwakwaka'wakw people, they couldn't even find 1,000 of us, who once were 35,000 strong at contact. We had vanished. Villages had become vacant, were overgrown. But because I'm Tommy 10,000 questions, I asked the questions to the elders. What do you know about those disease times with Sasquatches? That's something you should ask me, Tommy. Because I remember my grandmother telling me that her father, a chief, in our Haida village, or our Kwakwaka'wakw village, or our New Chanlith village, remember when we were disease-stricken, and all of a sudden the Sasquatches would show at the forest edge by our villages, and they too were covered in smallpox, holding their young ones, dragging their younger sick, and the chiefs told their people, go inside and get our sick people. And they brought them out and showed that they too were subjected to the disease of smallpox. And those Sasquatches were said to just hang their head and turn and vanish back into the forest from where they came. So we know the stories that those diseases swept through the Sasquatch families as well, and they vanished. I was born in 1965. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed Patty in 1967 in Bluff Creek. And since that time, I have seen and heard about my tribe proliferating like bunny rabbits. And there's Kwakwaka'wakw all over Vancouver Island, British Columbia, even in Kent, Washington, where I live. And I hear we have some in Scotland, England, and Australia. Because my tribe has grown, as have the New Chanlith, the Hiltsup, the Hesla, the Salish, and everyone else through the Americas. And so too has the other tribe, the Sasquatch. And that's what I want people to understand about Sasquatch. Every native tribe says, please, never hunt them or try to kill them. Unless, of course, they're coming after you. You have to defend yourself from any animal or critter. But we're not supposed to hunt them because we're supposed to respect them. When they pull down a branch and look at you, and they pull it down further, and they let it go, and they turn around, and that branch bounces, and you turn, and you don't see anything, no bear cub, no cougar cub, no bird, no squirrel. It was this Sasquatch saying, I see you too. I'm going to let you go about your business. Leave me be to go about my business. When you hear the Sasquatch hit the tree, bang, all he's doing is telling his other buddy, this is where I am, and there's humans right there. If you hear that bang, 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 it's saying, stop, human. Turn around, go back where you came from. We are taught as Kwakwaka'wakw at a young age to fear the Chonakwa, our boogeyman. But we are taught later on when we get older how to clam dig, how to harvest. And they bring us to beaches and they show us the impressions in the gravel at the high water mark, and they show us the broken choli, the cockle shells piled up. And they tell us that Chonakwa saying, we are clam digging here right now. And what the human does is gets back in the boat and goes a mile that way or a mile that way to another beach, does the test, no footprints, no broken choli, cockle shells or other shells, and it's all right for us to dig there. That is the respect between all tribes of the bipedal creatures of Sasquatch Island, and that includes the Sasquatch. This afternoon's talk, I'm going to be going into what I believe Sasquatch is, and you'll be seeing the regalia performances. And a lot of people have been coming up to my table and looking at my designs of t-shirts. I'm not selling them. They're all across the street and up that way. There's Twilight, and then there's SasquatchLegend.com. Ken and Lori invited me to do some designs a while back, and now I think we have 8 or 9 designs, and they're selling them, they're getting them out to other retailers, and North America is starting to see more and more other tribal Sasquatch art out there, and we need to see it even more. And We need to sit down with those native tribes if you're not native. I'm working on a code of ethics and conduct for Sasquatch investigators and chance encounters. I'm working with Todd Neese from the North American Primate Conservancy, and eventually we'll get it finished. And what it's going to outline is we're reaching out to the North American Indian tribes and saying, we'd like to have you, number one, be known that when someone wants to investigate in a certain territory, it belongs to two bipedal creatures, an indigenous tribe and a Sasquatch tribe. Please talk to the natives first and ask what their views are. Some will tell you, don't you dare. We do not want you disturbing or looking for Sasquatches in our traditional territories. Respect them. The territory is not going to be that big. Move to the next one. And that tribe might say, well, we got a FLIR camera on a 12-passenger van and we charge $250 a person to drive you around and show you our Sasquatches. Because that is coming. When I was 15 years old, I was making big money commercial salmon seine fishing, and the captain had a 12-foot inflatable boat with a big outboard motor, and I tried to sneak in the bars, and the guy would go, hey, you 19? Yeah, I'm 19. No, you're not. Get out of our bar, you punk. So I couldn't go in the bars and have fun with my fellow fishermen. So I went down in that Zodiac and I went exploring. And pretty soon, two American gentlemen in Prince Rupert said, hey boy, you know where we can see grizzly bars? And I said, oh yeah, I can cut some Mateen. It takes me an hour to get there. Well, we'll pay you $150 each. Now this was 1980. And I'm like, pop in. And I took them and I showed them grizzly bears. The next day they said their wives wanted to see whales. I took them at $150 each. And I said, wow, this boat can make me a lot of money. So when I got down to northern Vancouver Island, Alert Bay, I started doing whale watches for orca. And everyone in Alert Bay said, gee, you're crazy, Tommy. What are you doing taking those people out to show them dumb whales? I'm like, oh, they want to see them. I just take them out. I got a boat. I wasn't telling them I was making $150 each. And then when the fall, late summer came, I brought people to places like Glendale Cove and Wakeman Sound. And when we moved our boat to Campbell River, I took them to Butte Inlet, and I took them to Lockburl Inlet to see those grizzly bears. And everyone in Campbell River and Alert Bay, they called me crazy. And then in 1981, I participated as the Indian guide for the first fiberglass sea kayak excursion in North America's west coast in Johnson Straits. And everyone said, gee, you're crazy taking those Eskimos out? I said, they weren't Eskimos, they're all Americans. And now we look at grizzly bear tours, whale watching, sea kayak tours. Call me crazy, but they're multi-million-dollar industries. And when they shut down because it's October and the weather gets windy and rainy, that's when the Sasquatches come down from the rivers. Right now, they're following the receding snow up for fawn drop in the alpines above tree line. They'll eat all the greenery and everything up there. When they look down and they see the backs of eagles flickering in the sun and the seagulls flying around, they'll look at each other and go, well, that was a good June, July, August early, watching all those dumb humans see their houses and towns burn up with the forest fires while we were safe in the alpine. Well, look, there's eagles and seagulls. We better go down and fish the salmon spawning. And when the October, November rains come and the rivers blow out and flood and fish are dying now and there are not so many, the Sasquatches will seasonal migrate to the shellfish. And they'll live there throughout the winter, and that's their seasonal potlatch. That's when in Vancouver Island, Northeast, from the end of October through the winter, we hear the vocalizations. Where back in the day when I lived out there as a watchman by myself in the bush, I would plug my ears and go, la 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 la, I don't hear that, I don't hear that, go to sleep, Tommy. Because I was so scared of those Sasquatches until finally one night I banged my trailer because it howled behind my trailer, this big one. And I pounded the wall and I said, hey, can't you hear I'm sleeping here? And all I heard was, no, and it just moved off. And that's when I learned there's nothing to fear but fear itself when it comes to the other tribe. Show them respect, never hunt them, and they in turn will show you respect back. And think about that bounce and bow I told you about and taught you. How many of you have seen that and heard that bounce and bow but no animal? That was your close proximity to a Sasquatch out there. So when you go across the street to take a lunch break, I guess, You'll see all my native art in there on the t-shirts and cups, you name it. And you'll see the ones for the Forks Festival shirts being sold. If you're hungry, need a snack, they got bottled water, juices, fudge, you name it. Bigfoot this, Bigfoot that. And if you have any questions, by all means, put your hand up and ask me a question. But remember, I was a grizzly bear hunting guide for 24 years, and the Mexicans blew out my right ear. And this one don't work too good, so please speak up if you have a question.
Tom, will you just mention that you're hoping to do a conference on Vancouver Island?
Oh yeah, I announced for September 10th, the first annual Dr. John Bindernagel Memorial Sasquatch Conference and Festival. We're going to have mostly Canadian speakers because we have budget restraints. So I'm probably going to do a GoFundMe program to try to pay for this thing to get it going. But we have a venue which is a little bigger than this. We have quite a few speakers lined up so far. And we're going to have Chris Bindernagel and his family come up, and we're going to present them with financial donation because their mother's in old age home with dementia, and I'm sure the family needs some help after John's passing. And we'll have a display with his notes, casts, and other things. He was a dear friend of mine, John, and we used to have a lot of fun investigating up there, so I think he deserves a festival. Any other questions? So anyway, enjoy your lunch. Like I said, I'll go to my booth there. If you have any questions, by all means, come over. And just in case you do leave, don't forget Sasquatch Island is a Facebook group. There's also a YouTube channel. You can go to the website and monsterxradio.com for my Sasquatch Island podcast series, and I'll be doing more. Thank you very much. And in my language, a lot of us.
Okay, we're going to take a small little break, probably about 25 minutes, and then come on back, and we'll have Toby and his crew up for the next film.